It's Building 49, Blanca Callahan, and Press On. Just on 5 minutes past 10, it's UCB2. This is my story. This is my song. It is the show about story. And because it's Friday, I thought we'd do a bit of music, right? Between 10 and 11, it is our music hour. And so why not get in Out of the Ashes? Here they are. Good morning. We've got Penny Leon, and is that how you pronounce your name?
Actually,
it's
Penny Lion. It's like the
Penny
animal
Lion.
with the growl.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly how Dave Tanner pronounced your name this morning. I was like, I don't know if it is Lion. Anyway, he obviously knows Bass, so Penny Lion and Kevin Washburn. Yeah, is that right? That's so welcome to the show. Welcome to UCB2. Lovely to see you. You're going to be talking a little bit about your journey, about Out of the Ashes, about the music, the styles of music, and about your story. So Penny, let's start with you. This group, Out of the Ashes, it has its roots in a choir, which was started in 2006. So tell us a little bit about why you started the choir, what it was that you saw or you didn't see.
No, that's very, very easy. I, in my sort of longer ago history, had gone to some quite exciting live churches where music was great fun to be involved with. And Kevin and I now had been married for I don't know how many years. When did we get married? 1998. It's always good to get these things right. We had just arrived in the Cotswolds, and it was very beautiful. Lots of very pretty old churches, which of course can be churches that struggle in truth, spiritually. And we were finding that we were in services on Sunday morning that did hymns, ancient and modern, and we were struggling. I don't want to fool you. So I spoke to the curate, who was a great, lively character called Helen Salmon, and said, how would it be if we had a go at starting a gospel choir? And she, in a classic encouraging way, said, go for it. And we started a gospel choir, which is still going. It's called the Beacon Gospel Choir. And it gets stronger and stronger. And the band that is Out of the Ashes is probably it's also the band for the Beacon Gospel Choir. Okay. So that was where it started. Yeah.
Well, you saw something in the people within that choir. Something started to come out of these people that you saw. What did you see in terms of how people developed? You know, maybe starting out as quite shy or whatever. What did you see in those people that made you realize this is really something beautiful and I want to continue doing it?
That's really interesting that you should pick up on that, actually, because it's not something that everybody gets. We started because we just thought it was going to be fun to sing. What we didn't see is how God restores people through them getting involved in music for him. So we get an awful lot of people have joined the choir because a marriage has just broken up, or whatever state they're in, some major catastrophe has happened in life and they are broken. And so what will then happen is that somebody will say, come and join this choir, because it'll be a place of kindness and a place of doing something and getting involved and getting out from your limited viewpoint that comes from pain. And it is amazing how it does bring healing, and you start seeing people get more confident. You start seeing them enjoying life more. But also, people would join a gospel choir that don't necessarily have a faith. And once you get people praising God, wherever their heart is, their heart starts to follow. And I find that really exciting.
Absolutely love that. And that's, as you say, what really burnt in your heart, because you've got a real passion, Penny, you in particular, for encouraging the body of Christ, but really for both of you, Out of the Ashes, that's a real heart for encouraging and mobilizing and awakening of the body of Christ to who they are in Christ.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Which I think is something that was planted by God. I don't think I can take any credit for that at all.
Yeah. Well, one thing I did want to ask you, though, is that you think that everybody can sing.
If you can speak, you can sing.
Do you really believe that? So if somebody who feels like, I just love singing, but I'm so flat, or, I just feel like people have told me that I sound terrible, there's no way that I want to ever be in a gospel choir.
Is this something you'd say of yourself? Or is this what just other people say?
Yeah,
no, fine.
yes.
Okay, if you can speak... Okay, this is for the world out there listening to UCB. If you can speak, you can sing. The reason that you don't believe you can sing is partly some of the dreadful stuff that was done in schools when we were all small, where there's a group of children singing, making quite a nice noise, and then the teacher says, I really don't think I want you in my choir because you are flat, or whatever. And we have this awful, you are flat. What a negative thing to say to somebody. Actually, what's happening is they haven't quite got training on their vocal cords and their ear. It's just practice. It's all it is. And everybody, one of our best soloists in the gospel choir now is somebody that categorically knew, inverted commas, that she couldn't sing. Oh, yes, she can.
Wow. You did ask me if it was personal. There was actually some... I
wasn't sure who I was talking to
think
here.
about it. When I was in high school, somebody did say, you need to just maybe work on your harmonies because they're not quite right. And it did really fluster me because I just loved singing and I loved having a go at the harmonies. It kind of just felt like my voice naturally wanted to go somewhere else other than, that basic melody. And it did kind of throw me for a few years, I would say. But I'm so glad that I just continued. And
I think it's good that they put it quite positively, saying you need to work on your harmonies. Yeah. Where so often what happens, actually, it's a far more of a slammed door in the comment that gets made.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Anyway, so you can sing no matter what anybody's said to you.
Yes.
Kevin, we want to hear from you, so you need to get nice and close to the microphone there. Let's give you a chance. Kevin, you and Penny played music together before Out of the Ashes, before this gospel group. Was it a love for music that brought you together? You're the guitarist in Out of the Ashes.
Well,
we do love to hear the love story side of things, yeah.
The love story kind of things.
What was it that brought you together? Was there an element of music there and an enjoyment for a similar style of music?
Well, I think there was originally. I mean, I've been playing since I was 15, and a lot of it actually was around the Stoke-on-Trent area, because I'm a Cheshire boy.
Right.
Born and bred.
Welcome home.
Yes, thank you.
Travelled from Gloucestershire, actually. I didn't mention that.
I tell you what, it was a lot warmer down there when we left. Yes, so I remember when we first met, we were in a pub, and we did actually talk about we could play together. But of course, when we did then start up a rhythm and blues band, Motown band, and we went round doing weddings and things like that, doing that. The trouble is, we didn't start writing till, is it 5 years ago now?
It's
5 years ago.
Yeah, probably 6 years, starting to write 5 years ago, first album.
Because we just tended to argue before that, how it should go. Penny always kicks off in a minor key, and with a particular
I love
rhythm.
the minors.
The rhythm is always that one, and but then suddenly one day, I certainly found I was waking up in the morning with a song in my head, and I had to rush out and record it down, and then it just kept coming day after day after day, all these different songs and tunes, and we found that we could sit together. And it's great for, like, last night when we came up here early and we sit in the hotel and with a guitar, and ideas are coming out all the time. We're working on the next album now.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to hear some of the songs. One of the songs is, well, the first song we're going to hear is actually from your first album called The Garden. This was released in 2012.
That sounds about
right. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. But just give us a quick idea of the makeup of the band. The two of you are here, husband and wife duo, so you kind of form the base of Out of the Ashes. But you also have a few, is it session musicians, or is there a set band? Is there more than just the two?
We have a set lineup, but because everybody in the band, apart from us, have other jobs, it means that we need to... The set lineup is 3 backing vocalists, brass, drums, keyboards, bass guitar, and 2 other guitars, of which Kevin is one. But we can't always have our standard drummer because he's doing something. So therefore we have another drummer that can step in, and we have 2 keyboards that can step in. So one lineup and a core group of musicians that get pulled together according to who's available.
Okay, great. So we're going to hear the story, the song called Life Goes On.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about this story.
Okay.
The heart behind it.
Yeah. As I talk to an audience of the size that you've got this morning, I know that there will have been huge amounts of grief experienced by individuals in that audience. And of course, it's something that, we hope we're going to be protected from extreme grief before we're 20, but that's actually not necessarily the way it goes. And huge grief is an absolute certainty as we get later on in life. And it's the kind of grief where the world should stop turning, but it doesn't. And you kind of think, why are they still going out shopping when I'm here in this state? And for Kevin and I, that particular grief was we'd had one child, to quote another parent, our beloved son, in whom we are well pleased. And that's James, who's got himself off to school this morning with a little bit of support. And we wanted another child. And what actually happened is I had a miscarriage, became pregnant again, had another miscarriage, became pregnant again. And I find it fascinating that with each new pregnancy, I think, this is the one, this is the promise. And I felt I was on a promise. And by the 10th miscarriage, I knew it was now too late. And I was furious. I was broken, I was hurt, I was tearful, but I was so angry. And the thing that I love about God is you can take your hurt and your fury to him with absolute honesty. He loves honesty. And he handled me so graciously. And I was sitting in a bath. This was the day I lost the final child. And tears down my face. I'm sure I was a seriously not pretty sight. And I just said, God, I know I'm supposed to worship you in all things, but I don't feel like worshipping you now. I don't even like you at the moment. How could you do this to me? And he showed me a picture of Jesus Christ coming into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday, waving palm fronds, singing hosannas. Everybody's excited because this is their great hope that's going to save them from the tyranny of the Romans. This is their Davidic king who will put them back where Israel should be. And what he was saying to me is, within a week, he was betrayed, he was arrested, he was humiliated, and he was crucified. And for those people that were followers of Christ who were watching that, it will have been impossible for them to believe that this was going to happen because they hadn't got the backstory that is so familiar to us. He died so that we might be given life. And for them, it was exactly like the grief that I was experiencing now. And God was saying, you know the backstory for then. They just had to trust me. And he said, you've got to trust me now. Just trust me. And so that was what this song is about, and it's called Life Goes On.
Here on a hill, the cottage is down, the voices are still. Now that you've gone, life goes on. Ooh. They came in the night, their words were like knives, how they could bite. Now that you've gone, life goes on. Ooh. How can you lead me when your people are scattered and promises lost? And how can I follow when the path I believed in is nailed to a cross? How can I really begin to carry the curse? Where are they now? Singing hosannas, they welcomed you home. Now that they've gone, life goes on. Ooh. So here on a hill, voice revolves, the thunder is gone. Here in my heart, love goes on. Love goes on. Love goes on. Love goes on. Love goes
Out of the Ashes and Life Goes On. It comes off their first album release called The Garden. Beautiful song, beautiful story. Patty, you write the lyrics, and then Kevin, you write the music. I'm going to find out a little bit more about the style of music, Kevin, in just a bit. But give us an idea of where the lyrics come from. They are essentially stories, right?
They're things that God is showing me, or they are stories, or sometimes I find that they're things that God is trying to say to all of us. So, for example, that one came from a position of pain, but it was something that God was showing me. Sometimes the lyrics come like falling off a log. Sometimes they're a hard battle. But always they come from something that God is revealing to me, or through me, potentially, as well.
Well, we're going to hear some new songs you guys got in the studio in the last couple of days. You've got a studio. Is it a studio on your property?
Yes,
and you went in there with a whole team,
the crowd,
and you recorded some songs specifically for this show. So thank you so much.
That's
really, really appreciate that. So we're going to hear some new music from you in just a bit. Kevin, I wanted to could you give us an idea of the style of music? So you are the man behind the music and the sound in terms, musically, of Out of the Ashes. It's kind of, how would you describe it? You describe it for us.
Describe the style. Well, I'd like to think it's actually quite eclectic. As you've gathered, we've been around for a few years. So there are many styles that we've liked over that time. But I think, personally, I've always liked quite a big sound on stage. We go for a live sound, something that's going to great live. We're not looking particularly what comes good out of a studio, and for that you really need people, and there's nothing better than having a brass section and someone under drums who's waving their arms around and doing stuff like that. It's exciting for people to watch as well. And we've got the backing singers, and the backing singers are all doing dance moves while they're doing this. It's all really exciting. So we've always gone for this big sound, so I guess, and then we just get the music to fit that. And many styles. On the latest album, there's quite a variation of different styles of music. It's what comes.
Well, you spoke about how you prefer doing kind of live stuff. So give us an idea of what you do. Do people contact you through your website and then you go and perform? I mean, you've done some coffee shops. Tell us a little bit about where you do. Do you play at weddings and stuff like that?
We haven't done a wedding yet. We tend to go into churches and festivals. So we do a variation, because sometimes Penny and I will just go in where it's practical and use the backing tracks. We prefer to take the whole band when we can, but that's a big event once we do that. But we do out and go and do,
So, for example, earlier this year we were in Tenerife as a duo, going around churches, using backing tracks, telling stories, singing songs. Last year we were in Holland just before Christmas, and we did a tour with a band that was actually Dutch. So that was a band that already existed, and they learned, and working with a choir over there as well. So it's a complete mix, and it's what works for the environment we're going to be playing in.
Okay, love it. Well, we will give you details in just a bit of how you can contact the band. Your second album was then Love Can Be a Bumpy Road.
Yes.
So, Penny, tell us about that album. You were obviously happy with The Garden. And how did it progress then from, because I think a lot of times the second album is a lot harder than even the first.
It's really interesting because the first album was just a kind of, what are you doing with us here, God? We are in our 50s and we should be gardening and thinking about grandchildren and, stuff of that sort. And he was, we just couldn't really believe it. We felt, I was almost slightly grumpy about it in this kind of, we're being encouraged to do this and I'm sure God can't be in it. And then gradually realising that God is in this. And it became apparent, it was all about, during the first album, we learnt that, okay, the Western world now has more people over 80 than it does under 20. That's our statistic for the Western world. More over 80 than there are under 20. That's reflected in our churches. And at the same time, in the Western world, we tend to be inclined to believe that once we get past 35, past 40, the number can be wherever it is in your personal situation. But the fact is, there is a number that we start believing that once we're past that number, it's too late. Can't do anything new. God's not really going to use me. I'll polish the brasses. I'll make the coffee occasionally on a Sunday. And maybe I'll do the prayers or the reading. But I don't have a big, exciting ministry. And what God was saying to us is, that's not what his heart is at all. And he has a ministry. If you are still alive, still breathing, it's because God still has something for you to do. And he wants us in the West to engage with the fact that we are God's army. We are Christ's hands and feet on this earth. We need to be saying, no, I've not finished. What do you want me to do, God? So by the time the second album came along, we clicked. We realised what we were doing. So there was a real direction in the second album of God has not finished with me. God has a heart for me and for my ministry and for his plans for me.
Love it. So that was in 2015, Love Can Be a Bumpy Ride. And then the most recent release, Fears, Secrets and Lies.
Yes.
And then you got into the studio a few days ago and put together some really great new tracks. So tell us about the first one we're going to hear. A Good Place to Be. I love this, the idea behind the song. Tell us a little bit about it, because I think it really plays into, from following on from that first track that we heard, the journey of suffering that we go through and that we see all around us, but then also fear and the reality that we live with such great fear. And I think after the terror attacks and the Grenfell fire, there's this sense of fear across the nation that is quite palpable. Absolutely. And I think it's how the enemy likes to work. He loves to fill us with half-truths or fully lies. And there are you pick up any headline and you will find half-truths and bits of deception in there, which are designed to turn us against each other. Whereas God wants the truth and love and kindness. And just before you believe something you read in the papers that sets you against somebody, just take a step back and pray about it, because invariably you'll find it's not quite as it's being painted. So, and of course, that's what Fear, Secrets and Lies is, and there's a lot of that in the album. But a good place to be is that situation where there's a lot in the third album about learning to trust God and realising that when we place ourselves in his hands, no matter how black it looks around us, place ourselves in God's hands and choose to trust him, and it is a choice, then we put ourselves in a very good place to be.
I'm in your hands, and that's a good place to be. I'm in your hands, and that's a good place to be. but my heart is full of song. I'm in your hands, and that's a good, good place to be.
They are out of the ashes. It's Penny Lyon and Kevin Washburn on UCB2, my guests in the show today. I'd love to hear from you. If you've got a question for them, please do send it through on ruth@ucb.co.uk. They are hanging out with me until 11 o'clock this morning. So we've got a bit more time. Going to be hearing another few songs from them. They got into the studio and recorded these tracks in the last few days. So really, really blessed to have them with us.